Hi, everybody. I hope that Maia will be here with us. I'm going to share the screen, and we are here to talk about Disinformation and Societal Resilience program. And in a moment, if everything is going to work, we shall talk about this. Hi, Maia.
I lagged a little bit, but I am here.
Yes, you are. So we are here, as I said, to present the program Disinformation and Societal Resilience. And we chose the way to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the world, why would you need to participate in these studies, and why all of us need these pieces of knowledge and skills and attitudes and values and everything. And then we will give you some practical information as well. But Maia, set us off, kick us off.
So when I usually start talking about this program, it ends up me going into a rant. So I will try to avoid it this time and be very pragmatic in doing a little intro. So this program was born out of need. There is currently no such program in existence that actually takes into account the need for interdisciplinary education. Mind you, this is not a program for people who are, freshly out of bachelor's, just trying to learn something new. We have designed it for people who are already specialists in their own right, but simply want to get the extra addition of, what has been called the #1 risk for the next 2 years in the World Economic Forum's risk report for 2024. But also, it's going to be the main risk from technology for the next 10 years. So we are...
You're a bit laggy once again. I'm going to, we had a previous agreement that Maia allowed me to mute her, which is very hard to do.
To basically, or we have already, created a program.
We are both laggy. What? So Maia is currently in Italy, and her internet we already tested, and it isn't of the quality. So whenever she starts to behave like a robot, I have the freedom of taking over things. Sorry, I had to mute you there. But yeah, Maia is currently in Italy, but will be back in a couple of weeks to kick us off and to start with the fresh new batch of students. We will begin in February with the first group of students. I am Maia Murumaa-Mengel, and I am also a part of this program. We will tell you a little bit more about how a bit later. But this program has a lot to do with Baltic Engagement Center for Combating Info Disorders. And this is a Baltic hub that tries to do exactly what its name is saying, that we try to, gather up all the best knowledge that we have from all the Baltic countries and all of the European hubs that kind of function in a similar way. And we try to do something about this rather, well, let's say, sad outlook on life that we are seeing right now. And who are we? So you will know us as your sources, because check your sources. That's the #1 thing that you should do if you haven't heard already. So as I said, my name is Maria, and I am usually involved in research and teaching that has to do something with digital cultures, with digital communication, with social media. And although there's a lot of information on this slide that you are not supposed to read through, But if you just glimpse here and there, you can see that research-wise, I have been in many dark places and many light ones as well. So I will draw in my teaching and in this program as well from really like a lot of different studies, ranging from influencers to micro interventions to harassment and even playing out abuse in online settings. And well, the main idea is to take all of this theoretical empirical knowledge and put it to use. Like, yeah, great that you did this study, but so what? Maia, you are nodding and you are not like doing the robot thing. So who are you?
So try number 2, to speak and not freeze. Hi, I am a junior research fellow in media literacy. For the last 10 years, I have mostly been working in another sector, but studying media and communication with a focus on information disorders. I've been interested in narratives. I've been interested in journalistic practices that might lead to false information being published in news media. And of course, if you go deep into a problem, you also want to find solutions. And media literacy is one of the solutions. My interests now are really the whole ecosystem of combating disinformation, which means not only media literacy, not only verifying false information or images, but also regulation, institutions, education, empowered NGOs and other stakeholders, which means that I'm kind of all over the place. But that means that you will also benefit from the fact that because I have moved, my interests have moved with this topic. I hopefully can open several different perspectives for you as well. Also a perspective of being an active citizen on this topic yourself.
Mm. And we thought that we would kick off with very clear messaging, because that's another thing that you probably have heard, that in this info disorder that we are currently experiencing, you need to have clear messages. So is this a good program? And we are very happy to say yes. Yes, it is. And you don't have to take our word for it, because we put in quite a lot of work to design a program that would be very engaging, very necessary, and taking all of the best parts of all of our ideas and really making it into this really intensive 1 year long experience for the students, but also for ourselves, because we want to get something out of it. And we've already had several very valuable and cool people, let's be honest, cool people who have had a look at how this course has been designed, what does it focus on, and how and why do we do this. And some of these rather influential people are also on this slide, and we are very happy to kind of, wag the tail, just go around and flex with Kaia Kallas's quote and her blessing in a way. Because Kaia Kallas' media representations are definitely worthy of a research topic, and something that contemporary state leadership has to kind of take into consideration how it's done. And I'm talking obviously about social media communication, because that's my thing. If you are already familiar with the field of internet research, data studies, privacy and publicness issues, technology and politics, then probably I don't have to introduce you to Zizi Papacharisi, who is one of the gurus. I am a great big fangirl of Zizi, which is why I was very happy to see that Zizi was also our reviewer for this program, who kind of checks everything. Does it make sense? Is it high quality? And I don't know how about you guys, but this quote that she would actually want to sit in a few classes was kind of like, yes, we did it. We managed to put together something that is engaging, but also rigorous, and also takes advantage of our strong points, the strengths of our geographical location, of our research and study central focal points. So please excuse the little flex here, but we felt like we had to do this. Estonians are usually very horrible when it comes to, talking us big and like being like, oh yeah, we rock. We decided to, test this. It was very uncomfortable, but let's continue. So Maia, do we even have a problem? Do we have a problem?
And dramatic slide change?
Yes.
As you probably already have guessed, this is not a problem that we can call a specific issue of a country. If you read Disinformation Studies in 2016, you might have thought maybe it's like a UK-USA problem, because the way it was communicated back then was very specific to these big case studies of really massive information manipulations. But indeed, as the Eurobarometer says, this is a cross-European Union problem. Probably if the same survey was done in the Western Balkans, in Central Asia, we would still have similar results. No matter how high you rank in the media literacy index, your people will still say this, like Estonians also have very similar percentages to these median ones that I have brought out here, which means that even if on paper or by strategy you are doing a lot, the feeling of confidence, like, can I actually discern truth from false, manipulation from, jokes, or simply even understand who creates content and for what reason, this is a problem we share. So if the problem is shared, the only logic is that we should also make our lives easier. And instead of inventing the bicycle in Estonia, in Latvia, in Lithuania separately, we would actually come together and find solutions to these narratives that go across state borders anyway, in a way that would actually help people studying here, help people working in the field, and also help people feel more confident. Something is being done,
Mm-hmm. And it's not just a problem, but it's a wicked problem, right? What is a wicked problem, Maia?
Simplest way to put it, besides the beautiful quote here, a wicked problem is something that stems from such systemic, complex, and constantly evolving reasons that basically it cannot be solved. You can mitigate risks, but you can never fully make the problem go away.
Okay. And is it like, I'm always a bit conflicted when it comes to wicked problems, because if we deem them to be unsolvable, then doesn't this like make us depressed and just want to give up and, crawl under the blankets and never come out? That's the problem with these huge wicked problems. And one thing that doesn't really help when it comes to this specific wicked problem, because disinfo, misinfo, malinfo, and info disorders are, fed through the digital platforms. And we have a lot of techno panics when it comes to new technology, social media, to different devices. We are addicted to them. They are horrible for us. They are, the doom of humanity. They're going to ruin everything. Won't somebody think of the kids? And, you've seen the messaging. So this constant feel of doom and gloom and being damned forever, it doesn't really help the cause. It makes a lot of citizens feel like, okay, there's nothing to do. And unfortunately, techno solutionism is not the answer either. So yeah, there's an app for this, or there's this plugin for that, but it usually helps a little bit, but it doesn't solve it. Although very often we would love to think that, oh, we just need this specific tool, and then everybody will understand when it's not the right information, and we can check it, and the humanity will just, like, our brains are enlightenment and so on. No, usually it doesn't happen, because social systems and human beings are very, very complex. And that means also that we have to take an interdisciplinary look at this whole mess that we're in. So why do we have a problem? Many reasons.
You can obviously already tell, dear attendees, that we had a lot of fun putting together this presentation for you. Because if there is one positive thing about Weekend Problems, I guess, it's the fact that you can always keep on working on new solutions. And there is really a myriad of things that have been tried and that will be implemented in the future continuously as well. One really important thing I want to point out, after all of the praise we have given ourselves, this is a quote from my research in 2021 when I was looking into how security experts see this topic. Because as you know, because national security is the problem of each country on their own, then in the pan-European response to disinformation, security is not in the heart of it. Education and technology usually is, because that's all that the EU can do. So I think a really important part or a quote that I got from one of the a really experienced worker in the Estonian security forces is basically pointing out that Estonians also have the weak spot, and many ex-Soviet countries might feel the same, which is we already have immunity because we were occupied for years and years and years. And if a security officer points out that this indeed is not true, then I think it's something to consider. Empirically, we also saw this quote come to life during COVID times, because even though Estonian journalists can remain extremely objective or even maybe a little bit paranoid when they, for example, interview known Kremlin supporters, then this level of paranoia or the extra filter that the experience with Kremlin has given us did not replicate when the disinformation was medical. And when there was really, like in the beginning of COVID, fact-finding for journalists as well as researchers was ongoing, something that people don't want to hear. We don't know yet, right? So important to keep in mind as well that even if you have had more experience with Kremlin disinformation, even if you are as lucky as Estonia to have had media literacy in the curriculum as a compulsory subject for, I think, almost over 10 years now.
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years now, then even then, we cannot relax. We cannot stop thinking of new interventions. We still need to create new networks, and we need to be evolving, because the disinformation agents, be them like Kremlin or from political groups or even just individuals who want to troll, they are always inventing new solutions. So as people who want to combat this wicked problem, so must we. And that's a really creative task. I think it's one of the reasons I'm not so bothered by the whole wicked problem thing, because unlike this climate anxiety that we have heard in similar context, I feel like with disinformation, there is a clear way to make the world better as an individual, also as a part of an organization or a group, and then also, if you want, on a professional level. And I really like that.
And on this program that we are currently talking about here, we also try to map out and be really, really aware of different vulnerabilities in personal level, like cognitive biases that make our worldview warped and we become vulnerable, but also in terms of societies. So each society has its own specific groups, specific communication norms, specific ways that we have always done things that make the societies weaker in terms of psychological defense. And what we do here is we try to monitor different societies and try to understand, where is there this gap? Where do we need to do something? Where can we do something as NGOs, as policymakers, as military, as health workers, as teachers, educators? And we have designed this program to be interdisciplinary for this reason, that we need to step in very many domains. And that's why our students are also coming from very different areas. Like, for example, the group that we are beginning with in February, we have people from military background, we have people from higher education, from media literacy, NGOs. Who else?
From big tech companies who, now want to kind of unsell their soul. Can you say that?
Unsell their soul. Oh, clothes coming out, yeah. So we have private sector, we have public sector, we have like education and everyone. And I'm thinking that this, if it's moderated like with a clear thought, then it can really show how educational practices can work in health, how healthcare practices can be kind of borrowed to military, and so on and so on. So this is something that we are looking forward, as well as I hope that our students are. So Maia, tell us more. What has changed in our environment?
So these are just the highlights that I find are, specifically interesting. I'm not going to point out very obvious things. Like we could start with, when we had the movement of the Luddites, they really wanted to destroy the machines. Now we want to work with them. Like that's going a bit too far. But there are a few points that I would want for you to consider if you haven't yet. The first of it is about our consumption habits. So this is from my research in 2018. I am sure this number by now, in 6 years, has dropped at least by half, if not more. The Estonian national broadcaster ERR's news portal does long reads, in-depth analysis, and some like short news pieces, but usually they are known not as like bullet point type of newsmaker, but really like going into journalistic work. And if a person spends 22 seconds there, then what they will grasp, as we know from eye movement tracking research, is that they will see the title. They will see, maybe if you're lucky, the first 4 rows they will read completely. After that, they will just grasp the first word of every line, and then most likely close it before they really understood what the article was about. So if we cannot concentrate, then we cannot say it's social media's fault that I cannot do this or that. Concentration and habits is something we can reflect on. It's not easy to change, and it doesn't have to be, but even a reflection of, I do things online that don't serve me. For example, I obsessively, me personally, scroll the news. I read way too much every day. I probably could get some summaries as a newsletter instead of that. We all have habits like that we think might serve us, that probably are more like procrastination, doing like guilty pleasures.
It's the X for me, like formerly known as Twitter. So I can be there like in excessive amounts of time.
And we are media literacy educators, and we cannot fully control ourselves either. And that is okay, because we are living with technology that really has hacked us quite well. I'm still haunted by this article in Australian pop science magazine called The Conversation, where they did a machine learning test on X to see, like, machine learning prediction test then. So basically they took all of your friends, nothing from your own profile, only what your friends are posting, and with 95% accuracy could predict what you post next. We are highly networked. We are constantly influenced by those in our network, even if we want to say we are not. So the recommendation algorithms have also brought us to the point where there is a certain population who understands that every single person has a different news feed on Meta, for example, or Facebook. But there is also a certain part of the population who sincerely still does not understand the logic of the algorithmic nature of social media. who might have not grasped that the reason social media is free is not because Zuckerberg is cute and wants to help the world, but because they want our data. And the data that feeds the algorithms, basically social media platforms are not just selling our attention, but they are selling our attention to advertisers with the knowledge on what we like and what we will actually look at. So the context has changed. It's no longer a question of, if you don't want to look at the advertising on TV, just switch it off, because it has become something we cannot detect as easily. Everything we consume is basically being fed to us. I'm a bit pessimistic on these things, I have to admit. There are some more light looks on recommendation algorithms, but currently this is my view, and I might change it if I have new evidence. Limited access as well. So this is something to consider. If people had better attention spans, does everyone still have access to quality, free, verified information? For example, if your news publications in your country cost 50 euros per month, then it is easier to get your information from X or Twitter or TikTok, which are free. So it makes complete sense that not everyone can access it. One more thing that I really want to emphasize that really bothered me in COVID times as well is people randomly throwing links to research that costs, like, you have to pay every time you want to read if you're a civilian, so to say. And many people don't know authors actually give them out for free. So if you are stuck behind the paywall looking at a research article and someone is trying to convince you that this research article is what really is going on and you can't even access it, how can there even be a fair ground for a discussion, right? So we need to have access to quality information. And, with newspapers, for example, libraries having the paper versions has been a great help, but with less and less paper coming out, not so many public computers in the libraries anymore, access is a problem to quality information. And we have to accept that not everyone has the competencies to find the free access that they need, even if, they might not afford it. One more thing, I've already talked about the human nature being hacked, so to say, with understanding how to capture our individual attention. But one more thing to point out is the sensation of social clicks. So this is actually something from marketing research, but I found it really interesting because they were looking at it from the perspective of a news company. And they were complaining that they had this issue with their customers, that people would share the news stories more times than they would actually open it. So this is the type of sharing, like, I haven't read the article, but my professional knowledge of turtles in Antarctica tells me that blah, 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 blah.
Whoa, turtles in, yeah, that's really good.
So basically it's a habit thing, but also a social thing. Like, why do we accept people sharing their ideas and starting the sentences with, I have not opened it, I have not looked on the information, and then we just go and argue anyway. So let's not accept social clicks. And let's also, I really commend X for this, and there's not much to commend them on when it comes to media literacy. But if you try to share an article on X before you've opened it, it actually does give you a warning. Are you sure you want to share it before looking at it? And small steps like this, I think, are really, really helpful. But it's still a problem.
But I think that everybody who is with us right now, you have in some minor or major way noticed that when it comes to this kind of general discourse or how people talk to each other in online spaces, it has always been a bit messy, because the cloak of anonymity and, you can be however you want to be and so on. But in the recent 5 to 7 years, things have gotten crunchier. Things have gotten smellier, worse. So there is evidence from a couple of studies now that indeed I don't want to use the word toxic spaces because it has been hijacked, as has happened with many different words, but indeed this kind of toxicity or incivility, this kind of harmful, this e-bile, or however we refer to it, has taken over our public digital spaces. And by this, I don't mean your For You page, or I don't mean even your comment sections, or, you know, not the comment sections, but your pages, like the pages that you control as an individual. These, you know, anything can happen there. But I'm talking about the comment sections of newspapers. I'm talking about what's happening with, you know, the presidents, the politicians, the national agencies of different kinds in their social media spaces. I don't know how about you, but I noticed like some years ago that everything was getting out of hand there. Like people were talking like, you know, I'm not going to be vulgar here, but you can imagine all of the four-letter words that I could be spewing right now and be like, "Ah," that kind of communication. And it doesn't even matter if it's like in the comment section of newspaper or the newspaper's Facebook page. And I'm talking a lot about Facebook because so many people are there. So even if you might be, you know, but that's the thing of the yesterday, a critical mass of vulnerable groups are still relying heavily on Facebook, which means that I might want to be on X, but I can't do everything on X or Blue Skies or, I don't know, Tinder, but I have to be where the people are. So, but I'm sure that you have noticed that there is this kind of like incivility contagion going on. The digital space is getting more hostile and more like, you know, grimy in a sense. So, and we have taken this as, yeah, welcome to the internet. This is how it's supposed to be, you know. Grow up. Like, haven't you been to social media before? Like, what's wrong with you? How old are you? Are you like born yesterday or something? You know, that's the internet. It's like, you know, lower your expectations. That's how we behave online. And actually, when you think about it, it's not okay. Like, how did we let this happen? Like, how did we give away these spaces so easily? Because that was me like a couple of years ago. I was a very like lurking social media user. I didn't share much. I was just like, whenever I saw somebody, you know, arguing, I was kind of like, oh yeah, pass the popcorn, or like, oh my God, they're so stupid. I don't want to go and argue this, you know, absolute ridiculousness, what's happening there. I just rolled my eyes and moved away. When in actuality, I should have said something, because when all of the people who are like, rolling their eyes and moving away, their voice is not there, which means that people who are just like trying to figure out life and trying to make up their mind, they are seeing this harassive, toxic kind of type of communication, and they are being socialized into this. So that's why I'm very interested in micro interventions that we can do on social media that won't make us burn out, but rather it will help us do little tiny things every day to like not reclaim these spaces, because I'm not totally naive, but I am idealistic enough to say that something can still be done. So what can be done? Much. Once again, we love our slides, right? So Maia has put together a very cool pancake or anti-disinfo cake in a way. So welcome to the cooking class part. But I'm seeing that our chef has frozen. So are we having ice cream cake today, Maia? Yeah, Italy has no internet. Well, there is obviously no silver bullet. Hi, Maia.
I
You
come,
have,
I go, I stay.
yeah, I'm here. I'm dead. So tell us about the cake, because I know a little bit, but you are the chef of it.
Actually, Madis Vaikma is the chef of it. And really, all of what is written here, it's not really that special, as I found, unfortunately. I went to present this at the National Ukrainian Resilience Cluster, where we had disinformation, like people combating disinformation through different interventions from a lot of different countries. And never mind the country, I would say these elements were in place for everyone's approaches, maybe just wearing different names. And of course, that's also what research suggests. So that is also very encouraging that we have all quite organically moved towards an evidence-based approach, a whole of society approach. But this is basically a visualization of something that our strategic comms advisor at the government office had made up, just to visualize it really simply, because before that we used to have like 45-minute speeches about all of the measures, but now just 6 layers. So
and also,
sorry,
I have to have a comment about cake, because for everybody who isn't Estonian, when you come to Estonia for a conference for the first time, you might be very surprised because we love cake. And for every coffee break, there is cake. And I remember our American colleagues were very confused because they were like, are you having that much cake like all the time, or is this for us? So yeah, the cake metaphor works really well. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, we love cake and we love the anti-disinfo cake as well. So the first and second point are actually connected. So restricting information manipulations after Russia, started their renewed campaign to destroy Ukraine. Obviously, you are aware, a lot of European Union countries sanctioned Russian media channels. What I'm really proud of my country for, because this is again evidence-based approach, you cannot simply expect that people change their media consumption habits because you say that's not the best. It never works. It doesn't work that way. We will not change our habits if someone says that either. But restricting those channels that they are used to will create a vacuum. So the vacuum has to be filled with quality information. Obviously, we have no illusions about the fact that the Estonians who are mother language is Russian, that they would suddenly start enjoying Estonian TV, because there is also a massive difference of temperament here. If you look at like Solovyov or all of these like propagandist shows from Kremlin, they're like colorful, full of energy, rage, passion, fighting, saying absolutely ridiculous things that never get edited out. Of course, because we have journalistic standards, it's a bit more difficult to completely go off the chain and just say whatever you want. But they have been able, or at least have been trying, to mimic this energetic format. So me and Maria are not usual Estonians. You will find we are much louder, much happier, and talk nonstop compared to a median Estonian. So to have this like the right temperament and the right like reflection of your identity in the media that you consume is also important. And I'm proud of Estonia for actually saying that even though Russia is the aggressor country, even though we want to lessen the influence, we will create Russian language media content specifically for ETV Plus or like the Russian public broadcaster channel, because we understand that if you create a vacuum, it will be filled with something. And if you want it to be filled with quality information, you need to make more of an effort. That's simply it. The educating audiences part, I think it's quite obvious. Maybe one thing to mention also is that it's not just talk about formal education. We have already stated, this magical program exists. The University of Tartu deals with the topic. Media literacy is also a key topic at Tallinn University, especially in teacher training. And of course, we have the mandatory course in year 11 in high schools. Also, about half of Estonian high schools have media literacy electives on the side. However, it also includes non-formal and informal education, meaning informal settings for education, or non-formal meaning that you basically don't have any direct objectives or outcomes to the study process, but it's more of a like, let's hang out together and see what catches on type of thing. So that means that our target groups, when we talk about educating audiences, is not simply people who either are mandated to go to school and study this, or who stumble upon it in university, for example, but also making sure that we have media literacy interventions that educate people who think they are the absolute best already, and they would never voluntarily come to anything that says media literacy workshop, because this like overconfidence that, you know, I can always tell if it's right or wrong. I've never shared false information. I never will. I'm a professional. We don't say that. We actually are constantly talking about strategies that sooner or later, if you make a mistake, how would you say to a big audience that, you know, even though I've made a mistake, I'm still professional and trustworthy? We very much take into account the fact that it happens to everyone. The vulnerable part of society, in my personal opinion, is not based on what language is spoken in your home, but it's based on your like intellectual humility of sorts. Like, if you feel you cannot be fooled, you will most likely be fooled at one point. That's my logic, at least. Exposing influence activities is also important. I am, again, a big fan of our country's security services for the fact that both our inner security service as well as our foreign intelligence give out yearly, also available in English, yearbooks, where they bring out the super spreaders of disinformation, the agents trying to influence either narratives, people, organizations in Estonia. It's basically like a summary. Who is trying to hurt us? What is the goal? And what tools have they been using and will be using in the future? And this is really helpful because Estonian media has kind of made it into a massive day as well. Like, everyone follows the news that day. It's like, it's an event, a media event. And because of that, the people are aware. So for example, because there has been talk of Chinese growing influence, Chinese disinformation's growing influence in some Estonian circles, then I think it was in the yearbook for the first time, 2019. And 2 years later, when we had our first like little scandals, local Huawei, all these things, it was already known. That's psychological defense. You're basically prepping your people to already predict some sort of foreign influence. Keeping things in order also incorporates civil society, what Maria was talking about, individual empowerment and courage to do something about it, but also like semi-organized groups. Why I say semi-organized, I'm thinking of NAFO currently. They are decentralized, but at the same time, the country groups, they still communicate.
Wait, this is the moment where we have to like rewind a little bit. So Maia said NAFO, that means North Atlantic Fellas Organization. That's the Shiba Inu dog. That is the face of an anonymous, non-centralized, grassroots online social media movement that is aimed at ridiculing Russia's messaging. Yep.
Basically trolling the trolls. Yeah. We also have other initiatives of sorts. That's what I meant when I said I do consider myself an activist, like as a citizen on this topic. Me and my I can't say colleagues, I guess, people I am interested about the same stuff. We got into this NGO called Vox Rationis, or, you know, the voice of reason, which aims at, first of all, advocating for civil society needs when it comes to disinformation. That also includes making sure that we have court precedents of actually fighting disinformation rather than just, you know, okay, say what you want. Second of all, it involves a lot of training. And third of all, it involves monitoring and intervening where this information happens. So, of course, our security forces are monitoring as well. It's not like they share, but we know. Of course, we have, you know, the government office also monitoring. We have cyber... I'm forgetting the translation for this office in Estonia, but that you basically have like cyber monitoring of cyber incidents, and then you also have narrative monitoring that are put together into this big analysis. And it's very important that It's not only the government institutions working, and it also cannot only be the civil society working. So there needs to be a medium here. And then international cooperation. That's an obvious, right?
Absolutely. We have 15 minutes more because this is our favorite topic. We could be here for hours and hours, and you might be left with the feeling of great overview, but what about the program? So the program is actually a reflection of everything that we have been talking about here. So because we try to take all of these really wicked, really complex problems that function and that echo through all of the levels of action. They are present in the micro level, individuals. They are present in the meso level with the organizations and institutions and social groups, but also macro societal level. So we have, policy, we have laws, we have these kind of like cooperations between different countries, like moving as a whole, as a block in a way. So we try to take all of these three constantly and move in a pracademic way. So pracademic means obviously that it's practical, but also academic. We use theories to change, to nudge, to understand social life. So in a way, everything is theory and everything is practice, right? But we try to make it really clear that there are links. You can use the very abstract theories in your own home settings if you know how to operationalize these theories. And this is something that we will train you on. Well-being on a macro level comes with this word that is extremely important and that you can probably expect to see a lot, and it's resilience. So resilience means that you will see some you will see some horrible things, you will experience trauma, you will, life is not going to be beautiful all the time. You're not going to be coddled. You're going to have traumas. You're going to be down on your knees and you're going to be crying. But you can recuperate. You can come back from this. You will have tools. You will have this resilience, this mental resilience, this kind of social ties that you need to come back from this. Because if we talk about online communication, if we talk about wartime communication, there's so much horrible stuff going on. And we cannot protect our children, ourselves. We are going to see and experience really disturbing stuff. It's how we bounce back. So we try to learn from psychology, from health studies. We try to learn from military, from info studies. We try to take the best from each of the fields and come up with this kind of like a multi-view perspective. Media and information literacies is an important keyword. So if you're considering coming to this program, then we suggest checking out the UNESCO document, for example, the ground document that gives you a really good overview of what does it mean to be media and information literate. And on a micro level, be prepared that we will, on this program, we will try things out as human beings. So sometimes you have to do things that you haven't done before. Sometimes you have to like test things. Like one of these concepts that we are really feel we feel that there is a lot that can be done is micro interventions. So something that we have been testing and we are currently also writing about is the concept of micro interventions that comes from the race studies, but we use this in an informational setting. So micro affirmations, micro protections, and micro challenges that can be done in, for example, social media environments in order to, just like do something to overcome the sense of powerlessness and futility, that nothing is important. First, we have to get through that barrier, and then we have to learn about the cycles of, this phoenix cycle, in a way that you will, get the fury and rage and flame up like a superhero. Then you will need this kind of like, once again, recuperation time. You have to get yourself centered again. And here are very specific tactics and things that we can teach you. And we are very hands-on, so we will try to do interventions every step of the way, whether it be in toilets. We've had students do lots and lots of campaigns that try to get people where they are not expecting it. We will design playful approaches for younger age groups, for people who are valuing entertainment, but we will also do hands-on policy analysis, and we will try to do this kind of, balancing between education, entertainment, and all of these things. Another thing that you should check out if you're considering applying is inoculation theory, because that's one of the ground theories that we use. And inoculation theory basically says that you need a vaccine and boosters to build up your immuneness to misdis and malinfo. And here are a couple of just like very entertaining, really like good examples of how to offer some knowledge in bite sizes, in like playful, gamified ways. So Get Bad News is one, available in many different languages. Troll Factory is one, which is really an awesome thing. Spot the Troll. Yeah, it needs to be updated all the time, but still can be done in educational settings as well. And so how can we help in this mess? We really, really tried to put together with the brightest people from the field of semiotics, from linguistics, from military experts, we are from media and communication, but also from sociology, psychology, politology, that's not a word, that's in Estonian, political sciences. And we tried to bring them all together. We had, I don't know, hours and hours and hours we spent with coffee and cake and try to figure out what's the essence, like how could we do this? And we feel really rather confident that we came up with something good. Maia, will you walk us through how is this built up? And we have 9 minutes, so let's do this in a quick way.
Mm-hmm. Do we have you got the slide. So this, for those of you who are familiar with the way how usually teaching in Tartu University goes, it is a bit different because we have designed it in a way that instead of juggling 4 or 5 subjects at one time, you will do deep dives for 2 months into these subjects. So they are really, in that sense, they're a bit bigger and maybe more intricate, complicated, have more homework than you're used to. But you will have, I promise, you will have the actual time to dive in deeply. You will have time to do the homework. You will have time to impress your course mates with how fast you can do your evening reading or pretend to have done it. You can really work hard on doing out-of-the-box interventions. And you can only do that if we don't overload you with too many topics at once. At least that was our idea when designing this. So you will basically have very intense, but very topically focused weeks. So even within those 4 main subjects that you have on the slide here, these 4 subjects are the key like focus courses. And then on top of that, you have the internship and the master's exam. So the, whole skeleton of it is quite easy. And obviously, all of those 4 blocks that you see here, we couldn't fit everything we're actually doing on the slide. There is a topic for each week. And each week, we will also decide whether or not we have the expertise, or you might be calling, or we are calling, not might, we are calling a lot of VIPs in the academic sense into Estonia as well. Absolutely.
Are we going to the flex part again? We will be calling VIPs.
No, but you don't understand. Like, I have built up a program where, as program manager, I am so excited to hear those guest lectures, to come to those seminars. you will have a hard time. Like, it's not easy doing a full day of school, then going home, reading an academic publication, and then going to meet the author the next day to ask him actual specific questions. That's something you can't fake having read someone's own work. They will know, but it will be extremely cool, I promise. And also, people who will be visiting us on this program, we will be opening up lectures because they haven't been here before. Some of them might be too expensive for us. Some of them also might have gotten on our radar only recently, because obviously the topic is such that you don't really, it's not like international relations where you have, like, you know, this professor has been working on the topic for 50 years. Usually this tends to be a pivoting or like sideline that becomes your primary focus. So for those 4 courses, you will have very cool guest lectures, extremely cool lectures in your main time, and a lot of work, honestly. But the work will not be boring. It's not like you will do essays every day, or that you will do like...
Come on, essays are cool.
Okay, not stomping on essays. You will not be doing massively boring projects every week. And I say boring because for me, a project is boring if it's repetitive. And for you, there will be no repetitions from week to week to week. One week you will do one thing, another week you will do another thing. The only thing we want you to get really used to is reading. That is a repetitive task. Reading and actually understanding evidence-based information, and also being able to discern, like, this method, I don't trust this one. We want you to have this ability, and for that, there is no other way than you actually need to go through the motions and read. But really, you will have a lot of different ways to go. One more thing, we have study visits, because we do have, we have taken into account that you are not just here for the education. You also want to know the country, the culture, the people, the places, and we will support you in some ways in that. So first of all, everyone at the course, at least for this year it's set, is gonna get what we call a museum card, so you can visit all of our lovely museums, and then some visits we will have together. For example, to the museum that you know, remembers the victims of the repressions, of the Holocaust, or even just looking back at Estonia's history. It will be much more fun than having you write an essay on that, at least in my opinion. We will also have informal kind of support seminars, because as we said, we don't expect the people who come here to be super good or up to date on the latest research methods or analysis methods. We want you to come, and if indeed you have forgotten about some method, we will really structure like a group-based and informal meeting where we will try it out together and hopefully get our confidence up again. So when it comes to methods, you don't have a separate subject for that. It's an ongoing track, and it's going to be based on your own reflections on what you can and cannot do. Maria, what have I forgotten?
You have forgotten the fact that once you have looked through this video, you've seen us for a whole hour now talking, and we might feel familiar to you. You might feel like you can reach out to us. You can, please email us. Maia is the program director. I am going to be the first teacher you will have. Well, basically, I will be the welcoming faculty member with Maia. We will have the first 3 weeks of your attention. Every day we will meet with guests, we will do our own things, we will get acquainted and everything. So perhaps this is one barrier fewer than you might usually have. But also, Maia, after, you know, all the initial like leveling and all of the things that we do in the beginning, then there is internship, like practical work with organizations.
Yep, the internship as well as the master's exam are planned for your autumn semesters. So the idea is we don't actually want you to send out as an intern before we have given you as much knowledge as we can make stick. But the internships are also designed based on your interest. So if you come for an admission interview, one of the questions will be, where do you see yourself going as an intern? This year, we have people going to the Government Office of Estonia, coming to us to the Baltic Engagement Center Combating Information Disorders, which is a virtual internship, and then also NATO Stratcom COE in Riga. So that means
That's too much detail.
That basically means that we can get you a really cool internship, but you have to have a very clear idea of what you can bring to the table, not just what you want to take, but what you can give back. And please take that into account. So as we have, I think, 1 minute left.
Not even that much.
I want to emphasize one more thing. First of all, yes, write to me, write to Katrin. Second of all, we have made a super thorough website. There is information if you know and are patient enough to actually go through all of that. So you will find information on the countries that have tuition waivers, 1 candidate per country in Central Asia mostly. You will also find information on the deadlines, the dates, what is actually going to be happening, and also the requirements for admission. Please look through it before you write to us. And then we are fully yours for any questions, ideas, or reflections you might have.
Thank you very much for your attention. We hope that you got a feeling of what this program is about, and all of the details are available to you via these contacts. Go check it out, and we will be happy to see you in Tartu soon.
Hopefully see you soon. Good evening.